JNN now presents a live broadcast from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and Jamaica Productivity Center Virtual Productivity Forum.
Jamaica land we love. Welcome, 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 my people. Welcome to the Jamaica Productivity Center's Virtual Productivity Forum, a flagship event of Jamaica's first ever Productivity Week celebration. My name is Empress Golding, and I'm honored to be here as your moderator today. I am feeling so productive. Can we get a yeah, yeah, yeah? Hashtag Productivity Week, JA, say yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I hear you. So Productivity Week 2021 started on June 21 and will continue until June 25. The week is being held in recognition of World Productivity Day, which is on June 20 every single year. The events for the week are being held under the theme National Pathway Toward Resilient and Sustainable Productivity Improvement. Special greetings online to the Honorable Carl Samuda, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Madam Permanent Secretary Colette Roberts-Risden of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Mr. Anthony Hyde, Chairman of the Board of Jamaica Productivity Center, Mrs. Tamar Nelson, Chief Technical Director of the Jamaica Productivity Center, my distinguished panelists, viewers locally and around the world. Now, productivity, my people, speaks to how efficiently we use our resources. In other words, it is the rate at which we produce given a certain number of inputs. The rate can be measured in terms of quality, quantity, or value. That means if we are able to improve the quality, increase the quantity, or enhance the value of our outputs for every hour of work, dollar we spend, or even particle of our natural resources that we use, we have improved our... What's the P word? Productivity. That's right. This is the only way to reach a higher standard of living. And we all want a higher standard of living. Am I right?
Yes.
Oh, I do. So I'm about to get productive. Natural productivity is an important concept for businesses, but it is also important for households, students, athletes, and of course, our artists. With a productivity-focused attitude, we can make improvements in our everyday lives that can support more wealth, oh yes, more health, oh yes, for ourselves and our beautiful and wonderful nation, Jamaica land we love. When you think about how to get your employees to produce more in a certain time, how to optimize your study time, the fastest route to work, and when you make the choice to conduct an online transaction instead of standing in a long line, you are thinking of ways to improve your what? Productivity. All right. We can all benefit by thinking about ways to improve our productivity. That's why the Jamaica Productivity Center's motto is, productivity is everybody's business, yours and mine. And through public education, research, and technical training, the center strives to spread the message of productivity and assist in creating an environment that supports productivity improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, my people, my productive people. That is the reason that we are here today, celebrating Productivity Week 2021. I'm excited because today is a key event in the week. we have an esteemed panel of experts to discuss innovative ways to improve levels of productivity in the new normal and beyond, pivotal areas that will help the nation recover and become more resilient, and solutions, best practices, and success stories related to productivity management. Tomorrow, Wednesday, June 23, the JPC will be hosting workshops on Zoom. That's right. There will be 3 sessions. At 10 o'clock, it will be getting to know the Jamaica Productivity Center. And at 11:15 a.m., the foundations of production. At 12:30 p.m., improving your productivity, the 5 steps. Now, let me give you some information. Get your pens out and write it down. The Zoom ID can be found on the Jamaica Productivity Center's social media pages. Here are the handles for you. Instagram at Jamaica Productivity, Twitter at ProductivityJA, Facebook, Jamaica Productivity Center. And on Thursday now, June 24, the JPC will be sharing the voices of productivity. Hear what Jamaicans across the island think about productivity and learn about the many ways in which they are productive. On Friday, the JPC acknowledges that productivity can be fun too. Yes, there will be giveaways, and we all love giveaways. Yes, there will be giveaways throughout the day on social media. At 2 p.m. on Friday, there will be an Instagram live ceremony to announce the winners of the Jamaica Productivity Center's first ever productivity innovation competition. 4 finalists were chosen to share a video about their productivity innovation idea. So tune in to see who will score first, second, and third place. Prizes will also be given to winners of the Productivity Center's collage contest. That's right, we've been doing a lot. Prizes will include, are you ready? Day passes courtesy of PNS Events and vacations, and gift packages courtesy of the Honey Bun Foundation. Yeah, what next? And now, my people, it is time for a message from the Honorable Minister. I think he is standing by online. The Honorable Carl Samuda, Minister of... No, he's not standing by yet. Okay. Apologies. He's not ready. So our permanent secretary is standing by and ready. Is that correct? All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, when the world is facing one of the greatest economic downturns, productivity improvement takes on an even more significant role. Locally, we have seen the impact that the COVID-19 pandemic continues to have on businesses and individuals. To this end, the Ministry of Labour and Social Security remains resolute in promoting a responsive labour market, delivering effective social protection programs for the vulnerable, and developing a national culture of productivity underpinned by the decent work agenda. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security has embarked on several initiatives that are aimed at improving our operations. Some of these include the introduction of the Office 365 that supports easy collaboration and has enabled staff members to work remotely. The planned implementation of the Voice over Internet protocol that will result in a reduction in our communication costs. Full digital transformation of the work permit system to improve operational efficiencies and the integrity of our business processes, while at the same time responding to the needs of our clients and the labor market. Implementation of the Energy Cap software that is designed to improve the efficiency with which the ministry manages its energy and other utilities. Optimization of the Central Foods Warehouse to improve our disaster relief efforts. As we recognize World Productivity Day through this forum, the Ministry endorses the week of activities led by the Jamaica Productivity Center under the theme National Pathway Toward Resilient and Sustainable Improvement. The theme reiterates the importance of the need for targeted and broad-based efforts in recovering and building beyond the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. In closing, let me take this opportunity to encourage all Jamaicans to utilize the resources of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security and to utilize the Jamaica Productivity Center. Productivity is everybody's business. Therefore, let us continue to work smarter and improve productivity. Ultimately, this will lead to greater economic value and benefit to Jamaica, land we love. Thank you.
Thank you for that message, Madam Permanent Secretary Colette Roberts-Risden of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. I acknowledge the Honourable Carl Samuda. Thank you so much, Madam Permanent Secretary, for that message. Madam Secretary Colette Roberts-Risden there of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. Earlier, I acknowledged the Honourable Carl Samuda, Minister of Labour and Social Security, but he's busy being productive, and we're happy about that. So he's not here with us live right now. He has to do the people's business. I want to take a moment to acknowledge our panelists here today. Mr. Colin Turner, Senior Director of the JPC, and he is Senior Director, Technical Assistance Services Unit at the Jamaica Productivity Center. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank
You're
you.
feeling productive?
I am productive.
Excellent. We also have Brandon Wall, who is Manager of Digital Transformation, and that's where the future is going. So it's good to see you. And we also have Dr. Shara Tabitha Watson, Executive Director of the Scientific Research Council, the SRC. Nice to see you.
Same here. Good
Hey,
morning.
and what's next? Michelle Chong, Executive Director, Chief Executive Officer, Honey Bun Limited. Yes,
you.
doing big things. Did you bring any honey bun for us today? We're hungry.
Yes.
We'll pick some up later. And of course, we have Dr. Damien A. Black. Good to see you. Chief Executive Officer, Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's going to be a very productive day. Now, I told you that our minister is productive and busy right now, so we're happy about that. However, he did take time out to send a message. And we're going to ask Mr. Colin Turner now, Senior Director, Technical Assistance Services Unit at the Jamaica Productivity Center, to read the message from the Honourable Minister.
Good morning, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to provide to you a message from our Honourable Minister, Carl Samuda. And his message reads, "Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to participate in this forum as we celebrate World Productivity Day. Last year, we commemorated World Productivity Day with a virtual productivity forum which explored how the pandemic was changing the dynamics of the workplace, labor force, and productivity management. Since then, the Jamaica Productivity Center has been doing its part to improve the level of productivity in Jamaica. The center hosting 3 virtual productivity forums which focus on issues such as flexible work arrangement, productivity recovery strategies, and lessons learned from countries with favorable productivity growth. This year, we celebrate World Productivity Day under the theme National Pathway Towards Resilient and Sustainable Productivity Improvement. The theme is timely as we continue to find innovative and creative ways to increase productivity during COVID-19 pandemic. The government recognizes that productivity is everybody's business, and we need to collectively participate in the process by becoming more flexible, adaptable in the new working environment. Ladies and gentlemen, at the core of productivity is efficiency. And more efficient we are with our labor, investment, and natural resources, the more we can produce. Our goal is not to only produce more. We want to produce higher quantities and qualities of goods and services with every hour of labor, every dollar of investment, and every ounce of our natural resources. We will have growth if productivity improves, and if we apply the correct methods and techniques that will ensure continuous and sustainable improvement. Jamaica continues to decline as it relates to productivity. In the last 2 decades, between 2001 and 2020, labor productivity growth has decreased at an average of 0.6% annually. The decline in productivity growth has taken Jamaica off a path of development, and the COVID-19 pandemic threatens our ability to move closer to the state of a developed country. Preliminary estimates suggest that Jamaica's annual output per worker fell by 5% in 2020 when compared to 2019. The decline in productivity over the past 2 decades largely reflect rising employment levels, which has not translated into economic growth. This shows us that our country must not only consider the possibility of more people working, but also ensure that new jobs are indeed related to productive activities. We are at a pivotal point where we must actively seek to implement transformative initiatives to have long-lasting productivity gains. This can be accomplished with careful attention to areas such as labor market reform, education, infrastructure that supports technology adoption, targeted investments in research and development, as well as reallocating resources to higher value-added production. As we strive towards greater productivity gains, we should all seek to prioritize productivity across sectors, industries, firms, and in our daily lives. This year, the Center will explore how to automate agro-processing to improve the quantity and quality of our agricultural products. Studies done by the Center Research and Measurement Unit show that agro-processing can improve agricultural productivity by reducing post-harvest losses, diversifying the rural economy, improving food security, providing employment opportunities, among other things. The Technical Assistance Service Unit is equipped with technical support expertise to help firms operating in this business environment to measure and implement strategies that can reduce waste and boost productivity. Future initiatives of the Jamaica Productivity Center include, but not limited to, improving forecasting and measurement tools for productivity, supporting and advocating for initiatives aimed at reallocating resources to support productivity improvement and more effective management styles, championing the efficient use of technologies that support productivity, pursuing and implementing a national strategy that specifically targets training and development technologies to increase and/or improve productivity at the corporate and national level, and engaging the education industry in productivity-based partnership to promote productivity. As we continue to grapple with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global economy, the JPC will be working to strengthen partnerships with stakeholders and highlight potential solutions, success stories, and best practices, and our next step to promote growth in the Jamaican economy. As I close, I want to encourage organizations to become more resilient adaptable, and find new and innovative ways to increase their productivity levels. Thank you all, and have a productive day.
Thank you for that message, the Honorable Carl Samuda, Minister of Labor and Social Security. Thank you for delivering that, Mr. Turner. And we're going to ask you to continue and start the introduction and your opening statement. The panelists are ready and geared up to be productive and share all the information we need to have a more productive Jamaica. So we will ask you to lead, sir. Are you ready?
Sure, I'm ready. Ready
Thank
to
you.
roll. Okay. The Minister Samuda and our PS, Madam Robert Risten, I know that they are particularly passionate about and in of trying to put forth the seriousness of this particular issue, we have put forward, we have established the World Productivity Week of activities, all aimed at promoting productivity across the nation. In terms of an overview as it relates to productivity, productivity improvement is the foundation of economic growth, and the minister alluded to it in his message. Higher wages, greater profit, higher standards of living, these are some of the outcomes that we want for a nation. And one of the ways of ensuring that our economy, our nation is able to achieve these targets is through improvement in our general productivity across the nation. On the onset of COVID-19 pandemic, it has highlighted the need for us to focus more on productivity in all facets of our lives. Since 2020, the Jamaica Productivity Center has begun hosting a number of productivity forums with a view to spreading the word of productivity and ensuring that we have heightened attention being given to productivity. Now, the productivity is important because this is where we are able to ensure that there is growth in the standard of living of our citizens. Now, today, in particular, we are focusing our energies and our strategies towards sustained productivity growth. And to this end, we have organized the Productivity Forum. Now, the Productivity Forum itself is designed to raise the awareness of productivity among our citizens. We aim to encourage and promote the right kind of attitude as it relates to productivity. We want all our citizens to be productive. We want the simple man in the street to be productive. We want our companies to be productive. We just want all our institutions to be productive. And therefore, what we have done is under our theme, which is National Pathway Towards Resilient and Sustainable Productivity Improvement, we have organized a panel, a formidable panel of experts who would be able or will try to interrogate the concept of productivity improvement with a view to unearthing or coming up with possible solutions to driving our productive capacity to help us to gain higher levels of productivity. Because once we have achieved these targets, then we know that our nation will see economic growth. So we will be having these conversations with a view to demonstrating how important productivity is in our lives, and also to ensure that as a primary focus of this event, that we demonstrate how important it is for our nation to be productive in order to navigate the new normal. All right?
Thank you so much, Mr. Colin Turner. And we now ask Dr. Shara Watson of the Scientific Research Council to deliver her opening statement. Yes, my Executive Director, it is your turn.
Good morning, and thank you so much to the Jamaica Productivity Center for inviting us to be here, because this is, of course, a very important conversation that we need to be having, and have it frequently as well. So I'm here representing the Scientific Research Council and as it relates to a role in driving productivity. When we're talking about productivity, we're talking about an end result that we hope to have. We're now looking at what the outcomes are and how we can improve that. Now, critical to that is what kind of landscape and what kind of activities is needed for us to have that end result of being a productive nation. And very important to it is innovation, research, and development, which of course leads to innovation. So I want to, before I go much further, really define what innovation is in the sense that we want to be looking at it, which is creating value or new value from whether it be something new you're creating or improvement on something that already exists. But critical to the definition is value that is being created. If we can improve the value of something that exists and create new value, then we are on our way to creating solutions that will have an impact. Now, we are a very inventive society. We create things all the time. But are these inventions being implemented? Are we extracting value from that? Now, the role of the Scientific Research Council in supporting productivity and improving the productivity of our nation, which will ultimately lead to economic progress and prosperity, is to be a facilitatory enterprise or entity that undertake research of national importance, that can solve problems, that can be implemented. So we are not necessarily implementers, we are knowledge creators or solution finders, and we partner with the broader society, industry, individuals, and other government agencies to implement these solutions that we are unearthing. We also support micro, medium, and small enterprise in their quest, in their production to be more productive. So we offer training activities, we offer knowledge transfer, we offer research and development to create value-added products, which is looking at transforming our raw materials, our national raw materials, so to speak, into actual goods, products, or services, which will lead to improved productivity. So we'll leave it there to begin, and we can carry on the conversation as we go forward.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We're going to head on over to Zoom now and hear from Dr. Gary Jackson. Dr. Gary Jackson is the Executive Director at the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Empress. It's a pleasure seeing you all this morning. While I can't join you in person, but virtually. I just want to, I think this is a very timely, and I just want to introduce you to the SECRE's 5P principle. People, policy, plan, project, partnership. And this is very important for anything that we do, and I think it's very appropriate for this Productivity Week. For people, we have to continue to develop our human capacity and ensure that we have the right tools to work with in order to produce and to be productive. We need to have the right policy framework in place, foundation of the appropriate legislative and regulatory framework that would establish an enabling environment for our people for the various interventions that we are considering under this particular initiative or productivity. Then we need to have the appropriate plans that considers resilience, that considers sustainability, as we establish these suite of projects from these plans. We are going to establish a suite of projects from these plans. And for the projects, we need to develop and deploy projects that are adequately informed so that we don't make mistakes and that they are sustainable and resilient. And then we need to forge the right partnership. We need to have the right team in place. Our sustainability and our resilience depends on it. And if you are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, number 17 in particular refers to partnerships for goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc. And my apologies. I said you were the Executive Director of the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy. I forgot the other part, and energy efficiency.
Very important.
Yes, very important. And, you know, as you spoke and Dr. Watson spoke, I always remember what I've always said to my young people, you know, in encouraging them to be more productive and innovative, is that my favorite word is the P word. It's a productivity day, but many P words coming out there. What are they? partnerships, people, plan, policy, projects. I just love my P words. All right, moving on now. And I love my honey bun too. So we move to the lady who is the executive director and the CEO of Honey Bun 1982 Limited. My lady, it is your time. Miss Michelle Chong of Honey Bun.
Thank you, Empress, and thank you, Productivity Center, for inviting me to share this morning. I'm here on behalf of Honey Bun as the CEO, but I'm also here on behalf of the Honey Bun Foundation. So Honey Bun's mission is to lead, achieve, and serve. We lead through innovation, which I've heard a lot of this morning. And you know our products, so you know we're innovative. We achieve massive success for our stakeholders. And one of the more important ones for me is to serve the greater good, particularly of Jamaica, because Jamaica is what it's about. And the Honey Bun Foundation was born out of our desire to serve more, not only to do well in business, but to share. So the foundation's mission is to achieve powerful business models. So we develop business models for SMEs and the creative sector to have them become transformational industries for Jamaica, because we need Jamaica to rise. So productivity is well aligned with the foundation's mission to be able to develop these business models to service Jamaicans right across the island. So we have developed quite a few products, and you saw the Gap app advertised earlier. So these are products that we're developing to serve SMEs and the creative sector, because the creative sector is one of our most competitive advantage that I think that we hone as Jamaicans.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You see the other P words coming out? Powerful. Products. Oh, I love my P words today. As we continue being productive, we move now to the ED of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, Dr. Damian Black. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Empress
Morning.
and colleagues on the panel. Let me acknowledge the remarks by the Honorable Minister, Carl Samuda, as well as the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Labour and Social Security. They have highlighted for us the importance attached to productivity. The basis and the background for my remarks and my being present is really the sectoral presentation by the Honorable Minister of Education, Youth and Information, in which she presented on the performance of the education sector. She presented a review, a perspective, and as she said at the time, the government of Jamaica has validated the importance of education by giving it the largest share of the budget after finance and the public service. This indicates that notwithstanding the cuts in other areas subsequent to and in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, that education is vital. One of the things that we have got to appreciate is the fact that with that spend, there are concerns over the performance of the education system at all levels. And the minister thoughtfully shared that perspective, indicating the need to refocus our attention, our energies on how it is that we might improve the productivity of the education system, how it is that stakeholders at all levels, teachers, administrators, ancillary staff, the administrative team in the background, at all levels, parents, you name it. Very importantly, the institutions involved and associated with the education system, schools, agencies such as mine, one of the 6 formed as a result of the education sector transformation program designed to enhance quality. There is no doubt concerning the fact that quality education is the key to productivity. And so whilst there are concerns over the level, the nature, the experience of productivity in Jamaica, historically, currently, you name it, and even as we project into the future, we have got to therefore interrogate education and its performance. Goal 1 of the Vision 2030, Jamaicans are empowered to achieve their fullest potential. This is what education is about, and this is what certainly, if it is that we are hoping to achieve that, and to achieve that critically, then productivity is something that has to be highlighted, and therefore we place this as a priority. The Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, as a regulatory body for higher education, is focused on facilitating the development of quality practices through the standards it has developed, through the registration of institutions and the qualifications that they award or offer in their teaching learning processes. And so we welcome the opportunity to participate in this panel discussion, and we look forward to a very good interaction so that we might all learn and benefit. So thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. We are learning, and he added some more P words, you know, about the productivity P words. What are the words he added to it? Perspective, program, practices. Yeah, we need to write these down. So when we're thinking about our vision board of productivity for ourselves and for our country, partnership, people, plan, policy, projects, powerful perspective, program, practices. Ooh, we're going to interrogate some more. Don't you worry about that. All right, now it's a digital world. It's a digital world. So we have to hear from Brandon Wall from SIMTI. He is the manager IT Advisory and Assurance of SIMTI Consulting Limited, and the youngest one on the panel. Well, after me. Let's hear from you, Brandon. We like to hear from the younger ones.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Empress. Thank you, Jamaica Productivity Center. Many of us could describe technology as some kind of system or software used to reduce man hours for a certain activity. This kind of thinking creates a bias that technology is here to replace human. However, a more accurate description of technology is it's a combination of skills and techniques used to enhance the work of mankind to greatly improve productivity. From as early as we can research, productivity has been the method or practice used to determine whether or not employees are performing optimally. However, with the new form of revolution, productivity measures must be redefined to ensure that we are measuring more outcomes over outputs. In this fourth industrial revolution, people are no longer being paid just to be machines. People are being paid to think. And where thinking is required, outcomes must be the new indicator. Consider this example. Jane works with a company in the private sector as a business analyst. Her job includes writing a monthly report indicating how well a certain process is performing using a few established company metrics. Those metrics indicate that the process is doing great. However, the company is losing $3 million from the process every single year. In this scenario, outputs were being measured and tasks were being checked off. Now, if Jane was to use some different kind of KPIs, some different kind of measures that relate to the corporate objectives and the bottom line, it could indicate that there is a leakage somewhere, and therefore, her report would reflect where the bottom lies and how to fix it. This scenario relates to outcomes, value-adding activities over just the outputs of the process. I trust that as we continue, we're going to get a little more understanding of what improving our productivity is. But additionally, Jane or the company could utilize dashboard built with descriptive or prescriptive analytics. They may be able to pinpoint where those issues are and be able to even predict where the issues may occur and prevent it from happening. Technology will enhance the requirement for work and move man from being only doers to be both doers and thinkers.
All right, my doers and my thinkers. What a presentation there. I got some P words from you. Predict and what?
Prescriptive. Prescribe.
Prescribe and predict. Let me write those down. Yes, sir. And I hope the technology is not going to take over the humans. All right, we'll hear more from you about that, right? And when we get into our discussion. I now move to a presentation online. There she is, standing by. Mikhail Ann Urquhart is the Senior Director of Research and Measurement at the National... apologies. Senior Director of Research and Measurement at the Jamaica Productivity Center, and she will now speak to national productivity concepts and trends. The floor is yours, my lady.
Good morning, Empress. So good to be here representing the JVC alongside of Colin and the other panelists. Now, today I'm going to be presenting on the productivities and trends and concepts of productivity so that I can set a framework for discussion today. So when we think about productivity, what we're really looking at is the way in which we're able to transform our inputs into outputs. And it's how effectively and efficiently we're able to do this. And so when we think about productivity, it's not only production, as was mentioned before, but we're talking about goods and services, but how much we can get for every unit of input that we are producing. Now, there's different ways in which we can measure productivity, and we can measure it at different levels as well. When we think about national productivity is typically measured when we look at the gross domestic product per input, such as the amount of employed persons that exist in the economy at the time, or the amount of dollars that we have in capital investments. If we think about productivity from the firm perspective, then we might be thinking about the number of complete units or tasks that are going to be completed per time, per worker, or maybe by the type of machine that exists. So essentially, when we're talking about the calculation for productivity, again, we're just looking at a ratio of output given the number of inputs. And we can measure productivity in terms of amount. That's a number that you're producing. It could be the value. So how much is it worth in dollars? Or it can even be the quality. So how well is it being produced? And when we think about productivity, we're here because we recognize it's important, but the big question is, why is it so important? Well, productivity is really one of the best ways for us to reduce the amount of waste in our systems, waste in terms of time, as well as our raw materials and our human resources. It also will allow us to encourage for better management practices and procedures. It will allow us to have more sustainable economic growth and development. It will increase wages. So when for people, productivity is very important for our labor force. It's one of the only ways in which we can actually increase our wages. That's while it's not being complemented with higher prices, right? So we have more spending power. And then we also find that it also lends to the attitude and the willingness of our workforce to be a part of the production process. So there's different types of productivity that we like to consider at the national level. One such is what we call labor productivity. When we speak to labor productivity, we're looking at the total amount of output produced per each unit of labor over a certain period of time. And so when we're thinking about labor productivity, this can be done through a number of ways: by enhancing the human capital of the workforce, by having more effective labor management policies and practices, by using technology that complements the labor force, as well as complementing the labor force with other sources of input, such as energy, raw materials, and the like. And when we look at labor productivity across time and across the globe, what we find is that over the last 5 decades or so, we actually have seen a trend where labor productivity has, many of the countries such as the US and Canada and China, we would see that while there might be some weakening in terms of labor productivity due to a natural plateau in terms of the adoption of technology, the attainment of human capital, we find that Jamaica's productivity is also weakening, but not only is it the growth weakening, we find that it's also declining. So as our partners are also declining, our trading partners, we find that we are actually declining at a faster rate. So that gap in the labor productivity between Jamaica and the rest of the world is increasing. And this is actually true even if we look at it across the Caribbean. To put this into context, for instance, when we look at labor productivity over the last 2 decades, so if we use 2000 as our start point, and then we use 2019 as our end point, what we find is that labor productivity in Jamaica declined by 15%. However, if you look at St. Lucia, for that same time period, it increased by 1%. In Barbados, it increased by 6%. In Trinidad and Tobago, it increased by 42%. And in the Dominican Dominican Republic, it has increased by 51%. And so what we realize then is we have very weak labor productivity compared to other countries. And remember, we said that labor productivity is an important factor for us to grow. But not only is labor productivity important, but another key element that we often doesn't get enough attention is what we call total factor productivity. So when we talk about total factor productivity, we're looking at all of the tangible, and those are things that you can touch, such as machinery, raw materials, and intangible goods and intangible inputs. So the intangible inputs might be, for example, management practices, procedures used in a production processes, the type of technology that's being engaged or adopted. Those total factor productivity and all those intangible and tangible aspects that are not labor productivity or capital are not labor, sorry, or capital will actually help to drive how effective our labor and capital is being used. So when we think about total factor productivity in the global context compared to Jamaica, again, we see where over the last decade, Jamaica's total factor productivity would have been declining on average per year at a rate of minus points, or at a rate of 0.1%, I should say. So let me just repeat that. So when we look at the last decade, so from 2000 to 2019, we find that on average, total factor productivity for Jamaica has declined by 0.1%. Now, when we look at other countries, we look at the U.S., for example, we see that has their total factor productivity for the same period has increased by 0.1%. For the United Kingdom, it's gone up by 0.2%, and for Japan, it has gone up by 0.3%. And if we compare that to even sub-Saharan Africa, we see that in sub-Saharan Africa, it had gone up by 0.3%. Now, while we know that Jamaica historically has had an issue with low productivity, we also find that changes in labor productivity in 2020 were exacerbated, or these negative changes were exacerbated due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so what we anticipate seeing is that the final calculations for the year would estimate that labor productivity would have declined by somewhere around 5%. And this decline is largely due to the decline in our gross domestic product, which declined much faster than the job losses during the period. So what the panel will be discussing today, and I'm looking forward to hearing on the discussion, is how we are going to continue our road to recovery post-COVID-19, sustainable practices, policies, and habits that will actually help us to go forward with stronger productivity improvements. So if I could group those into 3 areas of consideration, I would say first, one of the things that we need to consider in looking at productivity is that we want to make sure that we're capitalizing on the opportunities that have actually been created over this last year and a half. For instance, there have been opportunities that we've gained in terms of e-commerce and the digital economy and digitalization overall. Secondly, we would want to think about how we can limit any of the long-term setbacks that might have been created to human capital, whether in terms of educational attainment, job losses, or even the effects of ill health. And then finally, I would say that we would want to encourage and facilitate the reallocation of resources to higher level production, as well as we want to ensure that we are allowing industries that don't necessarily serve us any well, or firms that don't serve us well, to switch their activities to areas that will actually help to improve productivity and to encourage growth. So thank you for allowing me to present this information to you all. And if you have any more questions, feel free to contact the Jamaica Productivity Center. We can be reached at jpc@mlss.gov.jm, or you can call us at 876-922-1598, or you can find us on Instagram at Jamaica Productivity or Twitter at ProductivityJA. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikhail, for that. Wow. Not depressing because the experts are here. And the experts are each and every one watching and everyone here on the panel. And we're going to spread the good news. We're going to get the productivity games on, and it begins right now. Now, I was disheartened when I heard about the productivity decline. However, COVID-19 will not win, and we are too innovative to lose. We have the fastest of everything in the world, and we are going to become the most productive country in the world. That's the plan here today.
Yeah.
All right? And I have vision, and I believe that we can. However, we have to understand and identify, each and every one of us, the challenges. So I'm going to ask each panelist, in your area, wherever you are, at home, in your community, wherever you work, industry you lead, can you identify for me in one sentence one of the major productivity challenges that we, the people, face? And I know you've had these conversations at home. So let's get the productivity games on. First, we must identify the challenges. And before we leave here today, I would like you all to discuss and come up with a solution for each challenge. All right? So anybody can take the floor first.
I'll go first, so it's easier for me.
Thank you, Dr. Watson.
The main challenge that I believe that has been affecting our productivity, both on an individual basis as well as on a national basis, is culture. And when I say culture, I mean how we approach things, how we work through things, and how we easily identify problems and stop there and not move on to solution. Now, in the context of research and development that will lead to innovation, that will lead to improvement in productivity, for me, at the SRC is looking at how do we engender a culture of creativity and innovation where everyone within the organization believe that they can come up with solutions, that they can be that idea, generate that idea that can lead to us doing something better, us creating something to a problem that we all experience, and how do we work through it. Once we create that culture where persons know that, hey, no idea is unfounded, no idea is too stupid, as we like to say, that we can work through and find answers, then I think we'll be on the path to help changing that mindset and that culture of stopping at the problem and not moving further.
I have to then ask, anybody can respond. To change culture is hard, but it can be done. And when we talk about education, we have to reimagine, right? How we educate. What do we teach? The tertiary level, the secondary level, the primary prep level, even the early childhood level. How do we change the culture through education? What does it look like?
I'd like to respond.
Sure, go ahead, Michelle.
And this was actually my response to your original question, which is what is the problem? And I think that it also connects back with the culture. So I think that in Jamaica and maybe a lot of other similar countries have a problem with identifying what real leadership is about. So to change a culture, we have to start with our leadership. So to me, leadership has a tremendous amount of meaning, particularly as it relates to succession, development of people, so that it's not about a big stick over a person. Leadership has to be about how to grow the people within the organization and to set that culture so we engage the minds of the people, and then we will begin to change a culture.
Excellent. So we've identified another challenge that hampers productivity growth in Jamaica, and that's leadership, succession planning, investing in the people and the development of the people. All right, I'm going to ask then anybody else to identify. I really want to be clear about what the challenges are so that we here and those of you watching can get your pen and paper out and explore all the possible solutions so that we can improve our productivity. Because we are winners, right? Yes, we are. I believe it and I know it. Anybody else want to take the floor?
Sure. One other issue that I think does exist to dampen our productivity is agility, or ability to move as quickly as the times are changing, or even failing fast. In some of the jobs I've had, or some of the persons I've spoken to, one of the things we had to employ is being able to fail quickly. So sometimes we are in a position where the project or the activity is not going according to plan, but we want to make sure that we're ticking off a box, so we're marking the output of the process. So we make sure that we're able to check off something that, if our boss asks us, we are doing well. However, the outcome does not lead to something that is value adding to our consumers or to our customers. And as such, the project finishes, we've spent the money, but we're not benefiting from anything at all. There's no benefit realization coming out of what we're doing. We haven't failed quickly. Instead, we allowed the problem to continue until the end. And now we have to get into a next innovation phase, or a next ideation stage, to try and now figure out what it is that we should do next 3 months down the line, when you could have done it in the first 2 weeks of doing something.
Yeah. Very interesting thought there. Let's go online. Thank you for that. We're going to explore agility. Yeah, being okay with failing, catching it quick. Yeah. Okay, online, we're going to go to, who we have? Colin. No, Colin is right here. I'm sorry. I'm moving now to Mr. Jackson. Are you still online with us?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
All right, let's identify. Yes, there you are. I see you. Let's identify one of the major challenges that hampers productivity growth here in Jamaica.
All right, so Empress, if you don't mind, I want to take another level. I want to take another view. I'm from a regional organization, so I have to take it from a regional standpoint. Ownership. When you think about the Caribbean, we are 18.2 million persons in the CARICOM region, 18.2, including Haiti. Haiti represents about 11 million. So that leaves for countries that are operating better than Haiti, that's 7.2 million. And I think when I listen to my fellow colleagues about agility, about leadership, about innovation, I think we have to create a stronger melting pot across the region to support economies of scale. We are struggling as individual nations in the global village. And I think our best chance is owning our region in a way that we can have cross-border research, cross-border development, cross-border deployment. We have done that through the University of the West Indies. I mean, most of the persons who I interacted in my time were from different parts of the region, and we were able to build different ideas and businesses because of that various interactions that we have and different culture, that we can actually create that melting pot to support productivity. But I think we need to have more ownership of our region and take charge.
Well, somebody call my friend in Trinidad right now. Let's go. Cross the borders. Okay, that's a great solution there. Let's ask now. Why don't we go to you, Mr. Turk? Yeah, you've been waiting.
Yeah,
Burning.
I do have an input on that particular point.
Excellent.
The point made by Michelle and Shara about culture, I'm in full agreement with that. The whole business of agility that Brandon spoke about, those are important points too. But, I'm going to take it from a different perspective, because the Jamaica Productivity Center, because of our mandate, where essentially we are about measuring, making recommendations as it relates to productivity, then we're going to see different issues as opposed to what my colleagues have mentioned earlier on. And one of the biggest challenge we noticed among companies, among industries and individuals when it comes on to productivity is the ability to measure productivity. So we talk about productivity all the time. We talk about solutions to productivity. We talk about attaining the high levels of productivity. But then where exactly are we in terms of measurement? So we have a challenge in terms of how we measure productivity. And that's what we find. So when we, for example, based on what we do at the JPC, the unit that I'm responsible for, the Technical Assistance Services Unit, we actually go into organizations and conduct different types of assessment. We conduct audits. We have consultations with a view to improving productivity. And most times when we talk with these persons in the organization, what we find is that if we were to ask, so where are you in terms of productivity? They're unable to say. They're unable to say where they are. So they want us to tell them where they are. So one of the things that we will need to do to solve that is to come up with a metric that can easily identify a way of understanding productivity. We want to be able to understand productivity so that the man in the street, and I'll always refer to the man in the street, the ordinary citizen who may not necessarily be part of a larger organization, each and every person will need to understand productivity. Michaelan spent some time explaining that productivity is the ratio of our inputs to our outputs. She mentioned how we can measure productivity on a national scale. She spoke about GDP and its importance in terms of economic growth, and she spoke about total factor productivity, which is a way of measuring national productivity. But essentially, we'll need to be able to measure productivity at the individual level, at the firm level, at the industry level before we even get to the national level. Because if we don't fix it at that level, then we'll have a challenge fixing the national level.
All right, I'm going to ask you then,
Sure.
Mr. Turner. So give us an idea how it works. So I have an SME, small or medium-sized enterprise.
Right.
And I call the Jamaica Productivity Center and I say, hi, Mr. Turner, I need to know if I'm being productive and what do you do next? How do you come in and help us to measure our productivity? Show me the process.
All right, so that process is simple and straightforward in that more than likely what you find is that the organization will have data. It will have statistics available. It's just that it doesn't know how to necessarily manipulate the statistics to draw out the productivity factor, right? So what we do is that we simply ask you for your statistical data. You would have been measuring things over time. You're selling, you know what you sell. You're producing, you know what you produce. You know how much raw material you use, etc., etc. So we use those data to determine how productive you are. So if I were to piggyback again on what Michaelan mentioned earlier on about total productivity and how to look at that from a national perspective. Now, if we go into the organization, what we do is that we try to measure what we call partial productivities in the organization. So what exactly is your raw material usage? What exactly is your energy usage, your energy consumption? How are you using your labor? How are you using all these different resources in the organization? We can calculate productivity for each of these, So we can calculate, for example, your raw material productivity. How efficient are you using your raw material? Are you wasting your raw material? So we look to see, take your data, we'll look to see how you've been utilizing your material. Are you wasting it somewhere along the line? And we can do a simple calculation where we determine, for example, how much kilograms of raw material you use to give you the particular products that you have been making over time. And therefore, we can show you how to improve your material efficiency in that perspective. We can move on from raw material over to energy. How have you been using your energy? Probably when you close your business place is at night, maybe we're still using up energy. Who knows, right? So we can do our analysis and see, okay, we make X number of products and we utilize certain kilowattage of energy. Right? How are we efficiently using the kilowattage? Are we efficiently using energy? We can measure that. I can move on to something else. We can look at labor. Michaelan spoke intensely about labor and labor productivity. We can look at labor. Are you using your team in an efficient way? Are you tracking their performance, measuring their performance, and all of that? And we can sum all of this now into one package that we call multi-factor productivity, or total productivity, where we can put all of these different productivity measures together to determine what is that final productivity that is coming from the organization, right? Mind you, all of these, we call them partial productivities because they end up contributing to the national productivity in the long run. So we have that capability.
I thought you were going to get technical, but it sounds as easy as ABC. So our homework this week is to ask ourselves, are we being productive? And maybe call the Jamaica Productivity Center and get some advice. I wonder if we could do it ourselves. Can we DIY? Sure. DIY your productivity. All right? Measure it. Let's move now to the educator. Yes, Dr. Black.
Yes. The conversation so far has been rich, and I've learned as I've heard each person speak. But then we pull everything together, and whether we're speaking about culture, leadership, agility, ownership, as Mr. Jackson spoke to, and then measuring, because critically we speak about productivity, but then we perhaps may use a subjective basis to assess whether or not persons are being subjective. So, for example, I will utilize my daily routines that might go into and contribute to my success, and I want you to apply these, assuming that as I have done it, then you will achieve, without actually assessing me, assessing you. And so it is with organizations, the systems, etc. The context within education at the various levels, because I have to be conscious of that, that I'm within the higher education space, the tertiary level. But when we see and look at each of the levels, again, the recent conversation has been about the quality of the outcomes, and how can we improve. COVID has forced us to assess how we do what we do. And certainly there will be long-term consequences of COVID, long-term impact and the opportunities that may be seized as a result of the reality of the pandemic. Certainly we have spoken of, we have bewailed the gaps in technology, the provision, internet service provision, access, the ability to afford access across the board. And then how many persons have been left out of just being able to continue their education. Again, go back to the statement of the national goal 1, Jamaicans are empowered to achieve their fullest potential. We have got to assess that from education perspective. There may be the hard science, the business, and then certainly IT and so on. But in treating with and dealing with essentially a service context and dealing with people and measuring productivity, because then again you have the staff who may be concerned as to whether or not they might be unfairly assessed in this process, to be blamed because the outcomes, the student performance are not optimal or as may be desired. You may have as well the issue of the resources invested. The leadership comes into play, as Michelle Chung was saying, as to the level now of the institutional, regional, etc., and the extent to which that leadership is attuned to and able to respond appropriately to what may be required on the ground. I think that the challenge, therefore, for us as a country is being able to measure appropriately productivity within education. Education feeds on and impacts everything in Jamaica. We are concerned about antisocial behavior, the violence, the crime, you name it. Education has a part to play in that. And hence the minister spoke recently about character education and how it is that we might elevate this as an important tool as we move forward. So we have got many things to do, but I think critically is just to be able to be conscious about what we are doing, to be able to assess how we are performing and to use those lessons, the data, to inform in very real time, because sometimes the data is here, and then when we are seeking to utilize it or to learn from it, it's actually way down, maybe a year or two when we actually need it to be implemented a bit more quickly.
Now.
Correct.
And the time is now.
Right.
Two things coming from your responses. I want to look at the people potential, that data. Imagine, 3 million. Imagine if we could have a file to say, this is the potential of each individual adult in this country. And then I want to discuss raw materials. Anybody can take the floor. Anybody online. What do we need to do? This goes with culture and the people, getting that data. What do we have? With the 3 million Jamaicans, what is our people potential? And what is our raw material potential? We have so much. But are we utilizing it enough? Obviously not. But how do we start that education, mass education? Anybody? The raw materials and the people potential data. Where is it?
A study was done in the, was it the 80s? Oh my. It has to do, I forget the title of the study, but it has to do though with performance in the workspace. And essentially the worker crying for respect. The worker crying for respect. What does that mean? One, you ask managers what may be uppermost in the worker's mind, money, the benefits, etc. But for the worker, respect. It then cascades down to the notion of our performance, because you said the 3 million, but I suppose we can add in the diaspora.
Yes, let's do that.
you name it. Yes. And their performance when they're in other contexts. What accounts for that? Also, you see the sense in which their opportunities are being seized by persons entrepreneurially. That notwithstanding the challenges, we speak and many persons still decry the financial sector crash in the 90s and how that was supposed to mean, okay, a denial of entrepreneurial pursuit, but so many persons have ignored that and have continued. So what accounts for all of this? The differences, the dynamics. And I think, again, it is one of those things that you spoke about change management. You spoke about being able to interact with the human being and how it is that we can get this person to understand what is required for his or her own benefit. These are some of the questions I think that for me. But we can't gainsay just the whole notion of respect. And what does that mean? How do we treat the individual? Which goes back to Michelle Chong's point about leadership.
Yes, and I want to clarify, if you would let me, that I don't mean leadership in terms of what everybody understands it to be. I mean leadership, and I have actually coined it and termed it leadership to the nth power. And when we hear that, I want to say that when you hear leadership to the nth power, it's about empowering people, respecting people, and allowing them to be their best self. And every other type of leadership is just okay. But leadership to the nth power is what we need.
I like that. You don't mind if I take it?
No, I want everybody to take it.
Take it, people, take it. It's yours.
If I may, Empress, also in response to what you put out to us when you're talking about resources, we're not short on resources, whether it be natural resources from our environment or plant material or aluminum or bauxite rather, and intellect. The intellect of the people. We can't debate that we have brilliant persons who excel exceptionally well, both within Jamaica and unfortunately a lot of persons tend to have to migrate.
The brain drain.
Yes. So we do have the capability. Is the translating, the implementing is where the challenge come in. So how do we improve the implementation or the translation of our raw material or natural resources and our people power that we have? And we have to look at the infrastructure that is created. When you're talking about productivity, again, I'm always going back to research and innovation because that's my area of expertise. But what has been limiting us is we're doing some things right and missing aspect of that complete circle. And when you're looking at productivity and driving development and looking at utilizing the resources, you need the entire circle to achieve the levels that you need. So we have institutions, great institutions to facilitate innovation and support productivity. We have great policies. We have some of the best policies you'll find anywhere. But we're lacking in human capital, we're lacking in infrastructure, we have some significant technology gaps. These are the things that we need to enhance the landscape, that we can see greater outcomes and not just having outputs. So that's something that I think we need to really build on.
Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Jackson, before the pandemic, the World Bank, I think 2019, reported that Jamaica has a very high energy costs and a high dependency on imported fuel. Now, I give thanks to my solar panels at my home because when everybody's light is gone, I don't know for about 3 days. And, I am a creative, and I remember I created the Jamaican baby slings and the first ever Jamaican trivia playing cards. And of course, as you said, Dr. Watson, we're creative and we do it and then it ends. And why aren't we continuing? And there are high energy costs when you think about producing many things, and people can't maintain that. And then the import costs. So I want somebody to speak about certain raw materials that we have to import and machinery and those kinds of expenses when we're innovative, but we just can't get there because we can't get the capital to do it. So let's start with energy for somebody who wants to start a plant. They have the idea, they have the intellect, but my God, the high energy cost. What are we going to do, sir? I come to you, I beg you for an answer.
I wish I had a silver bullet for that one, Empress. You know, it's a challenge. You know, controlling the uncontrollable when it's not indigenous to you and you have to import it. And you have that dependency. It's really hard to manage. As a matter of fact, maybe 60 to 70% of your electricity bill is actually fuel. And a lot of times we kind of get very upset with the electric utility company, but they really is not in a position to manage the uncontrollable. It's really, and it's a part of the electricity that bill that is not actually regulated. And it's a larger part of the cost. So yeah, we talk about renewable energy, we talk about energy efficiency, but it's really a way of life. Behind you, when I looked at when you were just in screen, you talk about productivity. It's everybody's business. So is energy, everybody's business. We have to live that way. It's part of our culture. We have to be very efficient at home so we can translate that back to our workplace. We can translate that back to our friends and families and our communities. But to manage something that is so mammoth in terms of our fuel costs, I mean, using foreign exchange to buy this fuel bill, mind you, the government through its construct uses a tax money from fuel to support the economy. So we have to be also cognizant of the fact that this is also providing support to the economy, but also taking away from the economy. So that is why energy efficiency is such a critical part of managing our resources. And it goes back to productivity and how we're doing that. But it's a way of life, and we have to take ownership of it at the very start. We have to teach our kids, and our kids will teach adults because they are very good at holding information. They are very good at regurgitating. They regurgitate what is good and they can regurgitate what is bad. But we have to just kind of mold it from very early so that we can have that change in our attitudes towards energy.
Okay. Do you have any advice or strategies that businesses can apply to be more energy efficient? Some quick tips?
Most definitely. All right. So one of the things that we encourage companies to do is, you know, walk through your business. You can get it done by a professional, but you can do it yourselves. I mean, there are a lot of resource materials, and we do have what we call the CARICOM Energy Knowledge Hub to assist persons in this way. You can go into that portal to kind of find out information. So you can just go walk around your offices, your businesses, and see what are some of what we call the warts, energy warts. Things that are consuming energy, even if you're not producing anything, because they are constantly on for whatever reason. You can look at your lighting aspects, you know, how lights are being used. Sometimes we tend to build these concrete boxes and we don't have enough light coming into the building, and we tend to put in a lot of lights where we don't really need lights, because we need a window there, something with natural lighting. Air conditioning is a massive part of energy consumption. The fact is we use a lot of concrete, a lot of what we call thermal mass in our construction. You know, I would like to give people the advice not to go this route at the start if you're going to build a building, but if you already have a building, you can put material in front of that, some of the areas to reduce the heat coming into that building. Because we are in a tropical area, we are experiencing this heat now. It's harsh on the human body, but we have to cool. It's just like the northern parts of the world. They use oil and gas for heating. We use oil and gas for cooling. But we have to be more passive in the environment so that we don't have to use too much energy to consume. And, you know, our processes in terms of how we move through the system, if it's a bottling plant, if it's a paper plant, you know, is that process set up in such a way that it's efficient? Is it moving your raw materials to the end point of that pipe efficiently? I mean, really leakage or warts plugged into your system that is not adding value to your productivity. And as I said, we can provide assistance to help you navigate that space as much as we can. Thanks.
Thank you. I will call you to help me to put the window at the top, what do you call it? The glass ceiling for more light at my house, sir, if you have any links. All righty, let's go to technology now. You know, it's really sexy right now, digital. I'm pivoting. You know, everybody's online now and has gained some skills thanks to COVID-19. We thank you for the opportunity. Let's go to you, Mr. Brandon Waugh. What can we do with technology to improve our productivity? Tell us what you're seeing. What are you reading? Give us some tips.
So I think it's probably better to piggyback on what we've defined productivity as initially, which is the ratio between our outcomes, our outputs, and the inputs, and how well we measure that. Mr. Turner spoke earlier that, you know, a lot of times companies may have data to help us to see, you know, what it is that they're doing or not doing. And I do agree that there are companies that do have a lot of data. But one of the things we found at SIMTA is that those companies have a lot of data, they don't have the correct data. They don't have enough data to tell me, for example, what is the cost of producing one single product from my process. So a lot of times you go into a company, especially when you're in a service industry, you don't necessarily know what's the cost of producing this service for an individual customer. And so when it is time to improve this business process or to transform the entity, we're now in this space of guessing. Will this actually give me the return on investment that I'm looking for? Will the payback period be worth it? And now we're in a almost like trying to cook up the numbers to, you know, to make sure that we're able to get the capital that we need, because automation is the new zing word, so we need to have automation in our business, or analytics is a new word, so we need to have analytics in our business. And so we try to put things together to make sure that we're able to get it done. However, when we look at the business process, for example, and you know, try to assess, to move, and to create this new dynamic, one of the things even my boss would say is that technology is the easy part. Buying an application and implementing it, yes, there are challenges, but it's the easy part of the entire work. Understanding your business process and knowing where the different pain points are is what is important. And what we find is we have many companies who, or even persons, will want to deploy some piece of technology to digitize a certain business process. And in digitizing that business process, you realize because there is a lot of waste happening, you are now digitizing your waste. And so something that was hidden before, a $3 million that was hidden every month, an employee that was not working as efficiently as you want to, or anything of that matter now becomes highlighted. And so, especially if you're going to go into the visualization space where you're able to see your numbers using some kind of dashboard or something along that line, a $3 million was nothing before, because you look on the books at the end of every year and you just scratch your head and you try to figure out how to move forward. But then you are looking at a dashboard that is being seen every week, every month, every day, and this $3 million just becomes more loud, and you still don't know how to improve it. We still don't know where to go next. And if we look at one of the things that we could do in implementing our technology or revisiting our business processes is looking at a principle in lean management known as downtime. Downtime identifies the 8 kinds of waste, that could be present within your business process. Your defect, your overproduction, your waiting, your non-utilization of staff, traveling inventory, your movement, and of course, excessive processing. And so if you look at your business process and you identify the different pieces and you assess objectively, is this process important for value creation? If this process is not important for value creation, then the next question is this process necessary? So it may be a regulatory process or activity that you require. So something that the regulators require or that the government requires. So it may not be value adding, but it is a necessary process. After doing this check, you then go to market and you start putting your technical requirements together if it needs to integrate with some other applications, if it needs to have a certain kind of security requirement, if it needs to have anything technical, your architecture needs to be a certain way. And then when you go to market, you need to be able to talk to your clients, your vendors, sorry, to ask them, are you able to meet these requirements? And on that note, it's then becomes important maybe to do two things first. To consult your SMEs, and SMEs in this case is not necessarily, I don't know, persons with their masters and their PhDs and other entities. SMEs in this case are your line staff, the people who are doing things in the process every single day. One consultant once told me that whenever he goes to a company to review their business processes or to help them to improve or re-engineer their processes, his first course of action is to call some of the employees and sit them down and talk to them. Ask them for the solution. Because most often, our employees know exactly what it is that is required to fix it. The next thing that we need to do, in some cases, probably in many cases, is to then hire an expert. So after we've asked the employees or the line staff what it is that we need to do, we still may not have the ability to do it ourselves. And so at that point, we may call Simtai Consulting to come in and say, help us to do this thing better. Help us to implement this new process, to go to market, to have that technical conversation with our vendors, to be able to implement this new solution that will help us to improve our business process and, by extension, add value to our customers.
Want to add value? Call Simtai. Whoa. I'm learning a lot here, and I know you are too. I hope you are making notes, and you know exactly who to speak to at the end of this. And then we have to ask ourselves, is this necessary? Is this forum today necessary? It sure is. All right, I'm excited about productivity. When I get out here, I'm going to have to spread the good news to everybody that I know. I want to go into the manufacturing business for a little bit and tie in productivity and social services. I'm big on CSR. I'm a foundation tete. What that means is I love foundation work, yeah? And I want to know how has the manufacturing business, how has it been affected over the past 2 years? Are there changes? What advice would you give others in manufacturing? And then let's tie in successful productivity in the manufacturing sector and why CSR, corporate social responsibility, is so important for the development, health, and wealth of the country.
Okay, so
it's a lot, I know, Michelle. I'm just going to sit back and take it in. The floor is yours.
So I came up with this analogy for persons to relate to how COVID and the times we're going through has affected us. And if you look at the Honeybun Foundation brand image, we have an orange tree. And the important thing about the orange tree is the roots and the fruit. So Honeybun has had a foundation based on risk management. So we put together our risk register, what are the things that could impact us. And we have found during COVID that many of those things that we planned for, that we never thought would happen, happened. And so we were, in a sense, prepared. For example, our food safety program supported us with health and safety. So there were a number of different things. But as it relates to the fruit, COVID is like when it came, it affected you. You had challenges. So I encourage you, take the fruit, cut it, and juice it. So hard times can produce things that you could not get out of the good times. So, we reaped a lot, and we have actually increased our revenues and increased our profits over the time. We were one of the more fortunate industries, but we had to put in play a lot of things. Our board of directors were instrumental with us coming up with new ideas. So the corporate governance side of a business will help you to prepare for the things that you don't know will happen. So the foundation is the roots, the things that you're doing that will keep you firmly rooted. And then the fruits you bear, they will provide for you the things that you need to do to grasp the opportunities. as it relates to social services, the story I love to tell is that when you help other businesses, as we do through the foundation, it provides more wealth in the economy that will serve to buy your products and services. So that is causing all ships to rise. So I don't believe, I mean, one of the big words in the foundation, besides leadership, is about collaboration. So we encourage organizations to work together and not to try to compete with each other. We're too small to compete. Our competition is the global market. So doing social services to help each other in the ecosystem, I mean, when you put up the Gap app, you'll see we have JAMPRO, we have JBDC, JMEA, we have Kingston Creative. We have a number of organizations that are working together, JAMPRO, as opposed to us doing individually our thing. We need to be working together. So social services within Honeybun is about bringing together of ideas and organizations to produce more than we could individually do.
I hear a common theme, and I think it's important to highlight it. That is about the collective effort and culture. We like, you know, that crab in a barrel mentality, and this is across all sectors. How do we focus and re-educate to become more productive, focus on collective security? I mean, I feel it should be a subject in primary school, and I think productivity should be a subject, mandatory. What say you, sir? Oh, you know I'm talking to you. Yes, I mean, seriously, can we implement this as a subject?
I understand you. I think it might not necessarily be, you know, a course on the timetable titled productivity, but it may very well be or surround that which is at the heart of what we call productivity. So, for example, if we were to look at the economies, if we were to look at people, if we were to look at communities, groups, etc., who are or may be deemed productive, what are the common factors or concepts? What are the things that they emphasize that we might, given our context, so that translation, and then apply them here, and then seek to enhance the practice? I think that you're looking, therefore, at a number of things related to character. What does character mean? Integrity. You know, the whole issue of being able to appreciate the other, because far too often many of the issues that we face are related to the fact that we don't think the other is important, and so therefore we violate them, we violate their space, their integrity, etc. And so respecting the other, self-management. There's a whole issue of communication. Communication not about me speaking, but also my speech, yes, but also my hearing, my ability to interpret, my ability to translate what I have heard into what I'm going to say to you, or for the basis for an agreement. The soft skills, to insert those into the curricula at the various levels. These are the things that I think would be important if it is that we want to advance the ability to empower people, as seen in Leadership to the Nth, or the ability to change and transform culture. Because ultimately what we are about is attending to many things at the same time in the context of resource constraints. So it could be housing, it could be security, it could be technology gaps, it could be gaps in science and technology, innovation, it could be gaps in entrepreneur access to capital. So many challenges are confronting us at the same time. But at the same time, we've got to be able to manage these. And so it does appear to me as if we are speaking about teaching productivity. It has to do with focusing on the human being who is central to. One of the things that, as Mr. Turner spoke about, total productivity, multi-factor productivity, etc., is many countries are focusing now on non-human based productivity. So the integration of the technology, artificial intelligence, etc., how it is that they can use those strategies to maintain and to advance. Populations, where the populations are declining, aging, you name it, and they're not getting sufficient youth or persons to renew, how can they then now augment what they have in order to maintain their productivity? That may not be where we are or what we can do, but we can focus on what we have to. You spoke earlier about yourself as a creative. To what extent does this aspect of who we are, bear in mind Mr. Jackson's point about our population, I mean, critically, we might not be able to compete mass markets, but Honeybun and his products in terms of the diaspora, you know, part of this. And so the extent to which we can translate who we are and our history and our culture into making a contribution to changing how we interact, changing how we behave, and thus improve the landscape in terms of the productivity and the outcome. There's the issue of the job skills mismatch. The idea that perhaps persons, where there are jobs, but there are not people to fill those jobs. Or there are jobs, but persons may be overqualified. You know, there are jobs, persons may have skills, but they're obsolescent. How do we deal with all of those things within the context of the education spend? And these are some of the challenges that we are grappling with within the education space as we seek to ensure that we, Jamaica, is the training and education systems are able to produce the persons needed for the labor market. The labor market, from my perspective, certainly is Jamaica, but it is also, as Mr. Jackson said, regional, and it is global.
Yeah. Because
there are issues that we're all facing as we move on up. And if I could just quickly add one thing. The impact of COVID has allowed the education system to look at how it does what it is supposed to do, and has changed significantly. So the use of technology has expanded. Many schools have seized technology and seized the opportunity to transform. And so I remember speaking with a principal who indicated that in her experience, the use of technology has assisted the administration within her school, and persons are able to use that technology to be able to truly create space, to receive reports, to assess, analyze, to present those reports, and collectively. And it has been a significant boon to them. For ourselves, even as we engage in the regulation of institutions, as we inspect and so on, the use of technology has significantly assisted us. So we have been able to, with the current team within the appropriate division, and they have applied technology, they have looked at how they have been doing what they've been doing, and been able to reformulate, to say, no, we can tweak this here, etc., to make it more friendly to the context and the reality. One of the things I think, though, that we'll have to struggle with as we go is what they call long COVID. We don't know yet how that is going to look like in terms of the long-term impact, not just on persons who have had it, but also the asymptomatic individuals, the impact on our organs, heart, brain, etc., the long-term care required, but there's social and economic costs. This is going to affect the population, the workforce, staff in institutions, etc. And these are some of the things and the challenges that we've got to grapple with as we move forward. And so the education sector, in terms of researching, looking at this, and being able to define strategies, this is the role of education.
Woo! There's a lot to unpack this evening when we have dinner. How are we going to be more productive? Oh, my goodness. I mean, my brain is on fire because I'm now thinking about the export market because it's all good to have an idea, have everything in place, but we have to open new markets, right? And it's a big world. And there's export. I mean, I'm sure there's digital exporting, export products. I'm not sure what the correct term is, and you could help me out there, Mr. Wall. But also, what about the export markets? Who do we look to? Where do we get that information when we want to expand our, our consumers across the seas? And how does it work? What information can anybody share with me? We want to increase sales. We want to export. If we're going to grow, we have to open new markets. Where do people go to get the information and get support? Yes, Michelle?
Yes, so...
The Gap app?
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, that's possible, but I'm just looking at some data from the Gap app as I did this morning. And what the Gap app actually does is we have SMEs who go on there and they answer the questions, and it returns to them. I think this is 12 different areas of business and where their gaps in their business are and where to go to strengthen or to close the gaps.
Love that.
So one of the 12 areas on the Gap app is export. So naturally, it would point you to JAMPRO, Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, and possibly some other organizations as the GAP app begins to develop and grow, because we will constantly be putting on things as we learn about them. So that's what the GAP app will do about export. I want to share one other data from the GAP app, and that is that productivity had the lowest score of the 12 areas in business.
Really?
The lowest area in business was productivity.
Wow.
The second lowest was corporate governance. So governance was what I referred to as a root. I don't think SMEs understand fully how corporate governance can help them. They think it's just dull topics, boards, discussions.
And your risk register that you mentioned, you have to manage your risk.
Yes. Before they happen.
Yes.
You can't firefight, you have to prevent the fires.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I need to start a show. Hello and welcome to Jamaica Productivity 101. Today we are looking at corporate governance. Then we are looking at measuring your outputs. What are you learning? Let's go to school. Here's your free lecture on, this just sounds like, let's start at the GAP app. I think we need to encourage everybody first to download that app, right? Tell me how it works.
Well,
Michelle.
It's very simple.
download it on
you
all
download it, Android or your iPhone, and you look up GAP, G-A-P-P, A-P-P, and you can put Honeybun Foundation after that, but it will probably come up for you anyway, even without it. And then it takes you through a series of questions. I don't think there are more than 20 questions. And then it looks at your business at a high level, and it tells you where your gaps are and where you need to go to close those gaps. So the Productivity Center is one of them that you go to. But what it is also doing in the back end for us, it is letting us know at a national level where are the areas in our country that are weak. So it allows us to focus on those areas. So of course, I'm sharing with you the two weakest ones. Productivity, corporate governance. What happens after that is that the app will allow you to go back every month to redo the evaluation of your business. So you can see if you're getting better. It gives you a chart to show you your strengths and weaknesses. So in green, those are the things you're doing good, and red are the things that you need to improve. And while you're going back, we're also constantly updating the questions and the service providers. It will also tell you where to go for e-learning on that particular topic. It will tell you where to go for training. So, of course, one of the big things that the Honeybun Foundation has done is that we've developed a platform where you can search for training based on your areas of needs. And it is not offered by the foundation. It is offered by a collaboration of the various organizers who do training. So we encourage people to approach us to get your training online. The only requirement we have of your training is that it is systematically executed. You can't think this week I need training in productivity, so come to us for our session next week. You have to do it regularly every year at a time when people can plan for it. So you could have it every month or you could have it every quarter, but the GAP app will allow you to go directly to the various organizations' website, sign up for training, understand what services they provide, because we've done this through a collaboration with the various institutions.
Excellent work.
If I
Get
may,
the GAP app. Of course, Dr. Watson. And then after that, I'm going to ask each panelist to deliver your closing comments and your charge to the nation so we can become more productive.
Right, just to also add to what Michelle said as it relates to export and support for that, the Ministry of Industry and Commerce is definitely one of the main resource center that persons can tap into. Industry, commerce, agriculture, and fisheries. I think I'm missing out another I.
I know, right?
So that's a major resource center. But one of the other things that we have to look at too is also import substitution. Because remember, it's not just new, but improving what also exists. We have to look at that. So if you look in the supermarket shelves, majority of the products there are imported. when you're talking about fab soap, food, general products that we have the capability, have the technologies to do, we are still importing those. So that's another gap that we can tap into.
Sounds like a bigger level of policy change here.
So it's just encouraging persons to move into the space. So import substitution is another great way through which we can achieve the economic prosperity that we want, as well as improve on our productivity.
And I want to add, Dr. Watson, something that I live by. When I walk into the supermarket with my two sweet children, Mommy, I want this, I want that. Is it Jamaican, son?
Where was it made?
Yeah. Read it. You know the Jamaican brands. Let's choose X, Y, or Z. And it's an attitude, I think, and a behavior we must adapt when we walk into the supermarket. Honey bun or dun dun? You know what I mean? Like, we have to be deliberate about what we pack in our trolleys. And if everybody does that, I can see that we would do much better and increase the production lines for many of our companies. So I'm excited about that, and I'm going to take a moment to plug like the Glory Gel, a Jamaican couple. I wash with that. It's amazing. I don't know them like that, okay? But I have to plug them because they're Jamaican and I want them to increase their productivity, all right, and export all across the world. It is so good. Listen, wash your clothes with that. It's like this big. I'm sorry, I'm excited. I'm very passionate about buying Jamaica first, and I think we need to develop that attitude as consumers. Yeah? So let's go now to the final comments and the charge to the nation. How can you get out in 2 to 3 minutes or 2 minutes each? Everything possible. So when we leave here, we are reminded, and you've given us a tool, an activity that we can increase our productivity as individuals, businesses, and a country. Let's start with you, Mr. Colin Turner.
Okay. You know, the Jamaica Productivity Center is the national organization for promoting and facilitating productivity, right? So this thing is really big for us. There are a number of initiatives that are currently going on for the JPC. So, for example, we are running 2 national surveys right now. One based specifically on perception. We want to develop a productivity perception from the public to know how they feel, what they think about productivity, and therefore we expect them to participate in that survey. We're also running a national survey that focuses on online learning. We're pushing that one. We have been pushing that one through the Ministry of Education. We have seen where the results, the participation is very high. We have seen in excess of 2,000 participants so far giving their views on how the online learning environment has affected their productivity overall. So essentially what we're trying to do with that particular study is that we're trying to identify gaps and impediments to productivity as people try to navigate the online learning environment. So the targeted respondents are teachers, students, and parents. Those are the 3 main categories of respondents. And we're seeing that during this study, the respondents are we're trying to generate a number of initiatives that are aimed at growing productivity. We want everybody to understand that all participants, everybody across the length and breadth of Jamaica to understand that productivity is very, very important. This is where we can see growth in our standard of living. This is where we can see everybody benefiting from their hard work, so to speak. So we know the workers will see improvement in wages if productivity is high. We know that shareholders will benefit in terms of their return on investment and the dividend distribution. We know that customers will see lower prices. We know that
hallelujah.
Yes, and we also expect that out of higher levels of productivity, that the environmental protection will also be important.
So productivity is everybody's business, Mr. Turner, and we will all benefit. And we can check out the Jamaica Productivity Center on social media to access the information about the surveys, because we must all play our part. It's a collective.
Exactly.
Yes, effort. Thank you so much, sir. I'm going to move now to Dr. Watson.
Sure.
All right, so the highlight of today is, of course, underscoring, at least for me, the importance of innovation and the direct relationship to productivity. Coming out of the conversation, a lot of what you were speaking about was speaking to innovations and innovative processes and outcomes. As the SRC, being Jamaica's principal public sector agency responsible for cultivating and fostering scientific research, which will lead to innovation, we have a critical role to play in assisting Jamaica to become a productive sector by translating our natural resources and engendering a culture of solution. That is something that we hold very important to us. A part of our mandate involves the popularization of science and its use in creating value as well as solving our problems. So that's something that we, through the SRC, will be doing in a much bigger way. So we'll intend to engage the wider society, the general public, which is a critical part of our stakeholders, in helping to create that culture of solution. Yeah. So that we can create solutions to the challenges that we face as a nation and ultimately as a world, that we can move in the right direction to both prosperity and progress.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Another P word there. Progress, progress, progress. All right. Dr. Jackson, I've been calling you Mr. Jackson. Please forgive me. Dr. Jackson, your time now.
That's okay. I go with any of them. So from collaboration, coordination, partnership, and team ownership, I think we have to find a mechanism to connect with the rest of the region in a big way. I think there's a lot for us to share within that ecosystem. I think we have a lot to share and we have a lot to receive. And I think once we can establish strong partnership across the globe and across our region and within our respective countries and within our respective industry, I think with the numbers, with economies of scale, we can do great things. Productivity to the thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. And over to you now, Ms. Michelle Chong.
Okay, thank you. And I'd just like to share three things. Two of them, of course, is from the foundation, and the third thing, the additional tip. So we've spoken a lot about leadership to the nth power, and just remember that has to do with developing our people. Respect, encourage them to use their full minds. The second thing is collaboration, which we've said over and over again, but I can't say it enough, to work together and stop competing. And the third thing is I want to encourage the persons here and who are listening on the use of data.
Yes, yeah.
Powerful, powerful, especially in the area of technology, understanding, making decisions. And you have good data and you have bad data. So get the data right.
Get the good data.
Get the good data and then do the right thing, and it works.
I love that. Thank you so much. Great responses there. And now we move to the Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission, Dr. Damian Black.
Thank you. Two things. At the level of the minister and the ministry, one, all of us within the education system, at whatever level we function, accept the principle and have been charged to accept the fact that we're accountable to Jamaica for one thing: student success. Student success. And that means, as I stated earlier, Jamaicans being empowered to achieve their fullest potential. I can't repeat it enough. This is part of what we have to do. It is not about the traditional metrics, number of CSECs, etc. But as I said, what's the potential of each student and being able to facilitate that. The second thing, speaking about leadership, innovation, and us looking at how we work, the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission took it on itself, the responsibility to review how it works by applying ourselves to the alignment with the ISO 9001:2015 quality management standards. And we have been very successful to the point where we have been recommended to be certified against those standards. But it's not just about the certification, but it is what it meant to the staff and the team. It gave us a way to coalesce around an organizing principle, looking at what we do, how we do what we do, and how it is that each person's the role within the scheme of things. And so this assisted us to really define for ourselves a pathway to be able to effectively address the requirements of our customers and interested parties. And so I think that as a way of a principle, just taking it onto ourselves, how can we be more productive? And that was the route we chose. And we have been successful to date. And we want to build on that to the satisfaction of the institutions and all stakeholders at the tertiary education level. And so this is, I think, critical to productivity.
Excellent. And now, Mr. Productivity of the Day. Brandon Waugh, Manager of Digital Transformation at Simtai. Let's go.
So I would probably want to share 4 or 5 things that we can do to help with our productivity. The first is to understand our customers' needs. Quite often we see companies implementing new solutions, new technologies, but they don't match, neither does it meet the customer's requirements. We implement it because it's the new thing in the market space. But I would encourage us to first go and understand our employees' or customers' needs. The second thing would be to understand or possibly redefine the business processes. Do not try to implement technology upon a broken business process or on a process that already has inefficient practices, but understand and possibly redefine those business processes. The third thing is to develop a strategy. So your strategy needs to include what are the phases you're going to take in deploying this new piece of technology, in improving your business process. And in that strategy, I would encourage you to start small, ask your line staff, seek expert advice, and very importantly, measure twice, cut once. A principle from the construction industry. Measure twice, cut once. Then the fourth thing is to be agile. Be able to fail quickly and to move direction as soon as to pivot as soon as something happens. And I guess the fifth thing, more of an advice, is that a lot of times companies suffer from what is called the cataract effect. So we've been in the organization for so long, we've been around this thing so much that something that is broken for us seems to work. So quite often we get into a space where, a consultant or someone else comes and says, boy, this really is not going, it's not matching the corporate objectives or so on, but you're in the process. And so as far as you're concerned, it is working okay. But ensure that you either hire a consultant or get someone else outside of your department to give you an objective opinion on whether or not something is working. Do not suffer from the cataract effect.
So I'll call you later.
No problem.
I've been suffering. Cut, measure twice, cut once. And the big sexy P word for 2020 is what? What's the sexy P word?
Productivity.
And pivot. All right, thank you so much there, Mr. Waugh. All right, so we now move to a presentation from our ambassador. He is Dr. Wayne Henry, Chairman and Director General at the Planning Institute of Jamaica.
For the Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, productivity means higher economic growth and job creation, better health and educational outcomes, improved government services for the citizenry, as well as a sustainable use of our natural resources to improve the lives of Jamaicans. The PIOJ supports productivity by leveraging data, external cooperation, and our technical skills to provide policy advice to achieve sustainable development for the people of Jamaica. To achieve our objectives, the PIOJ utilizes various productivity tools, such as R programming language and Stata for data wrangling, visualization and forecasting, and the Threshold 21 model to assess the impact of policy and shocks on socio-economic and environmental indicators. Productivity tools such as Microsoft Office Suite, curated databases, and various virtual meeting platforms are also particularly important to the administration of activities. Increased productivity will translate into higher profits for firms, higher wages for labor, higher revenue for the government, and lower prices for consumers. Let us work together and do our part to increase productivity and make Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
Dr. Wayne Henry, what a productive forum. I am all fired up to go and get productive and tell everybody about what I've learned today. I want to thank my esteemed panelists, Brandon Waugh, Manager Digital Transformation at Simtai, Ms. Michelle Chong, Executive Director, Chief Executive Officer, Honeybun, 1982 Limited, and the big foundation, Honeybun. Get the Gap app and make sure you know where your gaps are so you can do better and be better. I want to thank Colin Turner, Senior Director, Technical Assistance Services Unit at the Jamaica Productivity Center. We're going to call you to come in and check out what's happening in our business. Don't worry, the phone line is going to be hot, hot, hot. Productive hot today, trust me. Dr. Damian Black, Chief Executive Officer at the Jamaica Tertiary Education Commission. Thank you so much for your input. Dr. Jackson, Director of the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency. Thank you, and I can't wait till you come and cut that sunlight roof in my house and give me some more panels. You know what I mean? I can't wait. Saving on energy right there. Dr. Shara Watson, we'll see you at the CRC with our innovation, and I know you will guide us in the right direction. Did I miss anybody? Oh, the people, you, the productive people. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It is the productivity week for us here in Jamaica, and I know that we are going to do better, and we have a team here. We're not competing with each other. We are supporting each other. I want to thank the Ministry of Labor and Social Security for this innovative forum here today, and it's captured, so we can always rewind the tape and be informed and share the information with everybody else. The Honorable Carl Samuda, thank you for sending in your message, read by Mr. Turner, the Minister of Labor and Social Security. Thank you to the Madam Permanent Secretary, Colette Roberts-Risdon of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. The entire production team, you've done a great job. I have to thank our partners, the Honey Bun Foundation, PNS Events and Vacations, as well as Grace Food and Services for making this happen. Teamwork makes the dream work. For more information, for more solutions, follow the Jamaica Productivity Center on Instagram at Jamaica Productivity, Twitter at ProductivityJA, Facebook, Jamaica Productivity Center. Again, we thank you. Be safe. Remember the sexy word, the sexy P word, pivot and productivity. And tune in at 1 o'clock today to my radio show, right? Every Woman with Empress Golding. I will be dropping 10 productivity tips for you when we start the show, because that's what's on Empress's mind. Walk good, love each other more, and let's get busy. Let's get productive. See you soon.
Great.
GNN has just presented a live broadcast from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and the Jamaica Productivity Center Virtual Productivity Forum. For more information, visit www.mls